Ugh. Alright guys, welcome back to Driven 276. So today I was wanting to do the 5 likes, 5 dislikes of my Colorado Trail Boss. I've had the truck now 20,000 miles, you know, as I mentioned in my previous video when I done the review. I've almost had it a year. March actually makes a year. So I felt like I had enough experience in the truck to kind of give my 5 likes and 5 dislikes. We'll start with likes first. I feel like that's a good place to start. So one of the things I really like is actually the off-road capability. Stock, the Trail Boss comes with around 10 inches of ground clearance. And that's if you buy the package that has the 33-inch tires. Now, mind you, that actually is 20-inch wheels. And I don't really recommend that. Honestly, that's the reason I actually got the 17-inch wheels and the bigger tires. But, 10 inches of ground clearance, it's pretty good. It's about what the class offers. The Jeep Wranglers, I think, around between 9.7, and it actually goes up a bit higher. Ford Rangers are around that 9.7 to 10 inches. Now your Toyota Tacomas are actually a bit higher, but across the class, 10 inches is pretty decent. Now I will say off-road capability in comparison to my 09 Wrangler, the Colorado actually does better. It feels like it does better anyways. I have the Falcon Ruby Trex, as you all know, if you've seen a lot of my other videos. Now, my 09 Wrangler, I actually had, at the very end, I had the AT4S, or AT4Ws, and they actually done really good. But the Ruby Trex, actually lesser of a tire, supposedly. The Colorado actually done a lot better. It does a lot better in the snow. Now, I have had the Colorado off-road a lot more than I did the Jeep. But in terms of off-road capability and snow capability, I trust the truck a lot more than I did actually the Jeep. So that is one like. Second like I would really say is just the comfort. Now I will say my 09 Wrangler, it was a soft top. I did buy it used. It had 50,000 miles on it and bought it. I bought it I think in 2018 and it was an 09, so it had some age on it. The soft top was dry rotted. I never replaced the soft top. So it had some age, and it was a cloth interior. It was very basic. I think it was a Wrangler X. It was a 2-door. It was just it met its purpose. I got it really just to do a lot of landscape photography, just something to get off road. But I will say the truck actually is a lot more comfortable. It doesn't have the full tech pack, which we'll get to that in a second. But it does have leather, or maybe not leather interior, but whatever you want to call this non-cloth interior. It does have that. It has a decent sound system. I mean, it has a good radio, and it has, some good, decent creature comforts, and I've improved up on some of them. But I mean, I'm happy with it in terms of comfort. It's quiet. Now, I will say it's a lot quieter than the Jeep for sure. You can actually hear somebody talking here. Now, if I was in the Wrangler, I've done actually a video in the Wrangler. I do have the DJI microphone, so you could probably hear me. But it was a lot more difficult to hear me talking in that Jeep Wrangler. The next thing I really like about the truck, honestly, is probably the amount of power that you get. Now, the TurboMax motor in the Colorado, it came first, of course, as you all know, in the Silverado, within a full-size truck. And it can actually move the full-size truck, and it actually still tows in the full-size truck. And they slapped it in the Colorado. And from my understanding, they actually meant for the TurboMax motor to first come out in the Colorado, but they didn't design it, or something to that degree that it didn't get designed in time correctly, so they waited to do the Colorado later on. But 305 horsepower, and I think it's 430 foot-pounds of torque. That's pretty good for a 4-cylinder motor or engine. It's 7,500 pound towing capacity. And honestly, that's what drew me to the Colorado initially. I like off-roading, I do. I like going places that I really, I've enjoyed that here recently. I've enjoyed that a whole lot. But in all honesty, what really led me to get rid of the Wrangler versus fixing it, at the time when I got rid of it, I was starting to have some transmission issues. And instead of actually fixing the transmission and just keeping something off-road, I really wanted something to tow my Mustang. And so the 7,500 pound towing capacity really kind of drew me to this truck. I looked at all the other models. I looked at, a Gladiator, since I already had a Jeep. I looked at, the Nissan Frontier. I looked at a Ford Ranger. I looked at even the Toyota Tacoma, which at that time, the new body style had just came out from what I remember. They were somewhat close, but honestly, the Trail Boss being 7,500 pounds and still being able to do off-road things, and a mid-size truck. I didn't want a full-size truck because I still wanted to be able to get places that, off-road like the Jeep could. So it fit everything, all the boxes, it ticked all the boxes that I wanted. So that's a big lock for me, is it has a good amount of power. It can tow 7,500 pounds, so it can tow my Mustang. I have towed my Mustang. So I plan on doing that again actually in March coming up, and I'll make a video on that. I'm not using the U-Haul trailer this time. I'm actually using a different trailer, so it'll be a lot better. It's gonna be a lot more comfortable this time, I do believe. So power, is one of the things I really like about the truck. The styling. Well, another thing I like about the truck is the styling overall. The truck, to me, I think it looks really good. Out of all the other mid-sized vehicles, again, I've mentioned them several times, the Nissan Frontier, the actual Ford Ranger, Toyota Tacoma, and the Colorado, all the mid-sized trucks, honestly, I do like the Colorado probably the best. Now, I will say the new Toyota Tacoma, I do like it a whole lot. I like it a whole lot, but it's more expensive. So for the price, honestly, I do like the styling of the Colorado the most. Now the Ford Ranger Raptor, it's very nice too, but again, you get up into the same prices as ZR2, up to the $60,000 range. So it's more pricey. But now the Trail Boss, for the price, I think I paid right at $35,000, $36,000 out the door. For styling wise, it's probably one of the better looking trucks across all the mid-size lineup. And I mentioned it already, but the fifth thing I really like about the Colorado Trail Boss is the size. The size interior wise, how much you can actually you put in the bed, the size of the bed, everything I need, honestly. The things I'm actually using it for, it works for me. I didn't need a full-size truck. Again, I wanted to be able to take this truck off-road, places that I could get my Jeep to, and still have it, be able to tow things and be able to get, haul things off if I needed to. So it fits everything that I needed size-wise. So that brings me to talk about the next point, and that's actually my dislikes. I've been pretty vocal about my dislikes of some of the things on the Trail Boss, and that was in my 10,000 mile review. And I know that it was the truck's fault in terms of the wiring, but also it was the dealership's fault too in the way they went about fixing the wiring. It took a long time. It took right at a month for them to find the issue. And again, there was online mentionings of the wiring, and it just took me actually pointing that out a couple of times, calling the dealership. It was just somewhat of a nightmare experience. And then trying to get a rental too, that was another experience too. But anyways, so one of the things I really don't like about the Trail Boss is some of the trims. And I know this is kind of minimal. I didn't get necessarily the full tech package, so I don't have heated wipers, I don't have heated seats, cooled seats, heated steering wheel. And I didn't think that was really a big deal, and it wasn't at the time, until winter hit. Because I bought the truck in March and spring, it was starting to warm up. So my Mustang, it has, which again, it's a Mustang, but it has heated seats, cooled seats, heated steering wheel, heated wiper blades, I believe, heated side mirrors, all the things you would need during the winter, but it's not a winter car. It's kind of ironic, I know, but the truck does not have any of that. So I wish I'd gotten that tech package, but it's a little bit more pricey, and I don't think necessarily it has everything that, say, the ZR2 has. But gosh, the ZR2 package is right, I think, at 10 or 11,000 more. Well, gosh, probably a lot more than that, than what I paid for mine out the door, to get some of the same, some of those creature comforts. And you can't really necessarily put a heated steering wheel aftermarket in the Trail Boss without doing a whole lot of extra work, and I don't think it would be necessarily possible. But a heated steering wheel is really nice. I really like it in my Mustang, and I do miss heated seats, especially on leather or this type of material seats. It would be really nice. So that's another one of my dislikes, is not necessarily being able to get a tech package or whatever you want to call it. Heated seats, heated steering wheel in a semi-expensive vehicle. Again, I mean, $36,000 may not be a whole lot nowadays, but that's still a lot of money. I still feel like that, especially if you're going to have this type of material seats, they should have threw in some, the heated seats. One of the next things I don't necessarily like so much about the Trail Boss is the concerns of reliability. And I've talked about that too, as I mentioned, I've talked about that several times. There's some concerns overall reliability-wise for the Trail Boss or the Colorado. Biggest thing in my mind, from what I understand, is the transmission, the 8-speed transmission. That is a concern. I don't have the extended warranty. I did not buy it at the time of purchase. I'm really looking into, before the warranty runs out, extending the warranty, because I do plan on keeping the truck long term, but I do feel like I need the warranty if I'm going to do that. And also for some wiring issues too, the wiring, that concerns me. So reliability is one of the other dislikes that I have. The third thing I would imagine, or I think anyways for myself, that I really dislike about the Colorado is that it only has direct injection. It does not have both direct injection and port injection. So that kind of lends a hand back to reliability. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Ford Rangers, they have both port and direct. And don't quote me on that. I have to look it up. I'm not 100% for certain. But I know my Mustang does. I know it has both. And then you don't have to necessarily worry about walnut blasting at 60,000 miles or your anything clogging up later on in terms of your fuel system or your valves. That's just going to be, I think, a bit of a pain down the road. And even if it doesn't necessarily cause any type of misfiring, it will rob power. I know that that's going to happen because there's no way you can get fuel to the back of the valves with direct injection the way it's set up. So I wish that they had actually opted for doing both port and direct. And a lot of car companies don't. I think Toyota does now, if I'm not mistaken. Toyota does, Ford does. But it's a good thing to have, both port and direct. So one of the next things I don't like necessarily about the Trail Boss is aftermarket support. So if you look online, there's a whole lot of aftermarket support, say for Toyotas, and that's even for the new models. Old models, there's tons. In the Jeep, there's tons, of course. You might get a free duck in there as well too, but I mean, again, there's a lot of aftermarket support. But now the Colorados, there's just not as much. And that also goes for tuning. I mean, again, you're looking at a turbo 4-cylinder, and there should be a little bit more aftermarket support in terms of those options to be able to tune the 4-cylinder, because I can about guarantee that the truck would probably run quite a bit better if tuned just a little bit. I think there's a lot left on the table, not necessarily just in power, but in drivability. The tuning just seems a little bit rough around the edges in my mind. So I wish there was just some more aftermarket support. I know there is some tuning options, but for instance, if I'm not mistaken, Toyota has a Cobb support, which is really well known in the Subaru community. I wish, again, that Chevy or the Colorado had something of that support or something of that nature for support, because that would be very handy, very nice. And the last thing I'd imagine on my list for the dislikes is mileage, is gas mileage. That you're looking at a turbo 4-cylinder. No, it's not going to get the greatest gas mileage, but you would like to have a little bit better gas mileage than what you get. I think usually I can eke out around 20 miles a gallon, but I am running 33s, these Ruby Treks, so I'm usually around 18 miles per gallon. Now stock, whenever I did have the stock 20-inch wheels, I was right at 20, 21. Towing, it's right at 12, 13. But being, if you're on flat, I wish that you could get just a little bit more gas mileage being a 4-cylinder. I will say though, for the capabilities that this 4-cylinder has, I guess it's not too bad. But I get about equal or a little bit better gas mileage in my 5.0 Mustang. Granted, it weighs less, but not by much. I think it's by maybe about 800 pounds, maybe 9. I'm not really for certain, but it does get a little bit better gas mileage overall. So that's my likes and dislikes. Now, if you own this truck, what are some of your likes and dislikes? Or what are some things that you were looking for in a truck that actually would get you to buy or not buy a truck? What are some things you look for overall? But until next time, guys, I appreciate you all subscribing. The channel's grown so much here recently, and I do thank you all for the support and continued support. And I hope to make some continued videos. Next month we have, again, going to the track at Road Atlanta. I'm going to be towing with the Colorado. Hope to do a video on that, and also a video just overall of me going to the track with the Mustang, getting back in the Mustang, doing some more things with the Colorado, doing some camping trips, just seeing exactly what direction, not necessarily what direction we go with the channel, but how far we can go with the channel. I do want to keep the channel growing. I want to keep on pursuing growth and actually do some more things with the channel. But if you all have any ideas, anything that you all would like to see on the channel, just let me know. I'd like to hear your all's thoughts. But until next time, see ya.
One last like, and that's always being able to get you to the destination where adventure is possible.